since we mentioned China, I felt the need to ask the question while the topic was ripe, and that is, this whole concept of being able to fight, sort of two regional conflicts, perhaps not simultaneously, one more primary than the other, but as we are, sending munitions, material, and humanitarian support to Ukraine, and as we are trying to figure out the morass that exists in Gaza. Suddenly, just a short while ago, China decided to conduct naval exercises and surround the island of Taiwan, which, I don't know about you, scared the bejeebies out of me. So I guess my question is, are we ready for that? Are you concerned about that? Was that just for show? Are they just trying to take advantage of us? Is China trying to take advantage of us psychologically, or trying to send a psychological message, given that they were focused on these two other regions of the globe? What are your thoughts about that little episode?
Well, China's definitely sending a message, but it's not just to us. In the first instance, they're sending it to Taiwan. And they're saying, Taiwan just inaugurated a new president, President Lai, about 2 weeks ago, and he is seen as, well, he has a history of being more pro-independence than even his predecessor, who was from the same political party, and also the more hawkish, more nationalistic, more pro-independence side of Taiwan politics. And China's nervous about this guy, President Lai. President Lai has since mellowed and promised not to disrupt the sort of status quo situation whereby Taiwan runs itself, is a democracy and a powerful economy, and has its own military, but is not recognized as an independent country by most nations around the world, including the United States, and whereby Beijing still claims the right to take Taiwan back into the Chinese fold and if necessary, use force in the process. So that's the status quo, and Taiwan doesn't like it, but Taiwan is prepared to live with it as long as there's not a war, and as long as they can pursue greater standing in the international community in other ways. So that's sort of where we stand. But China's nervous that President Lai doesn't really mean it when he says that. And so they want to remind him there are things they can do to make his life pretty tough. I do think that any insinuation or messaging or suggestion about a possible blockade, as those Navy ships, as well as missile firings, can imply, that is China's best card to play in terms of creating psychological pressure by creating economic downturn and panic. And so rather than try an all-out invasion, which either succeeds or fails, and if it fails catastrophically for China, I think China is much more inclined, based on its own history of how it uses military force and based on just the realities of the military balance in the Taiwan Strait region, much more likely to sort of step up the rheostat, to turn up the rheostat on blockade-like operations, and to the point of actually, at some point, possibly even trying to blockade Taiwan. And I've done a long military analysis, which is on our website at Brookings, if anybody's interested, back in 2022, in which I tried to model what it would look like if China tried to blockade Taiwan, let's say use its submarine fleet to sink ships going in and out of Taiwan's harbors. And we tried to break that blockade by putting in a lot of anti-submarine warfare capability and creating a shipping zone, a corridor to the east of the island that would be protected. And I argued in this paper, there's actually no way anybody can be sure who wins that war. The two sides are relatively evenly matched. The performance of various kinds of weapon systems is hard to predict in advance in an all-out superpower war. We don't know how well command and control systems would survive, et cetera, how well missile defense systems would perform. There are some indications from peacetime tests and things like that you can try to factor into your modeling, but there are other big uncertainties that I don't even think the Pentagon can narrow down to a point where it can accurately predict who would win that war. And so I think that scenario is the troublesome one. I'm not even sure Senator Wicker's military could handle that scenario adequately. And so I think it's more a question of trying to bring in as well economic deterrence, making sure China knows that in this kind of a scenario where they're trying to target Taiwan's economy themselves, we can try to target China's economy. Obviously at great pain to ourselves in the process. So it's sort of like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Right.
But creating the fear of global economic catastrophe and depression may be the only realistic way to confidently show China that the pain here it would suffer is not worth the benefit.